offseason. Coach, we'll start with you and then open.
Yeah, I was going to do a recap a little bit of the 2024 season. You know, we started off with 63 new players, so it was a new experience for me. We got in here a little bit late. This next Tuesday was when I got in and started doing stuff, this upcoming Tuesday. So we were kind of behind the eight ball in terms of recruiting. Wasn't a lot of high school kids that were there, so we brought in 63 new guys. Proud of the fact that I think our coaching staff, support staff, everybody connected to the program. The former player, not the guys that were already on roster, everybody kind of embraced these new guys, and I had very few issues or problems, which when half your team is brand new, that's probably pretty rare. We had a big win over the number 15 ranked team in the country. That was the highest rated team that U of H had beaten in the last 7 years. So that was a big win for us. We beat the preseason favorites back-to-back weeks. You know, in the Big 12, we brought the Bayou Bucket back to Cullen Boulevard, you know, with a 33-7 win over Rice. Something that I didn't talk about very much, but we had the 5th toughest schedule in the nation coming into the year, and someone told me the other day it might be higher than that when they go postseason. Our schedule that we had this year. We played a bunch of nationally ranked opponents and played a lot of hostile environments. And I thought for the most part, we were very competitive every game that we played this season. And we're proud of that. You know, a 4-point loss at nationally ranked Oklahoma. And, you know, I had a less than one score game going in the fourth quarter against BYU last Saturday, and took Baylor and Iowa State late into the ball game, and then we finished in the top 30 nationally in some team statistical categories. We're first in the Big 12 in punt return defense. We were second in the Big 12 in total defense, third in passing yards allowed, third in completion percentage this year, and also fourth in Big 12 in first downs defensively. So there was some good things. We needed to finish some ball games out and put complete games together in all three phases. But I was proud of the fact that we competed, for 4 quarters in the majority of ball games this year. Any questions?
Coach, Texas Tech announced Sheil Wood
Mm-hmm.
as their new defensive coordinator at noon. Can you talk about that, the process?
Yeah. You know, Sheil did a great job for us. We would have liked for him to stay, but we just, it came down to a financial situation, and they were offering a heck of a lot more, and it's something we cannot do right now, and obviously we wish him and his family the very best.
You're saying U of H can't match the number?
Well, it's you have a budget, and in that area, they seem to have a little bit more resources than us right now.
Willie, along those lines, you've had a week since you made the change at OC. Are you any closer?
I think I'm going to have somebody hired tomorrow. I don't want to say anything until we got the T's crossed and I's dotted and all those kind of things, but we're excited about it, and he's going to come in here and do a fantastic job for us.
You and this might tie into recruiting, and your staff, but to have the OC opening and then the eve of signing day, word start to get out that you're losing your DC, you did a great job of keeping and retaining guys that were committed. You could just talk about when you're up against that and.
Yeah, obviously, timing is not great all the time, but it's like the defensive linemen. The interior guys, Coach Giles did, majority of the recruiting for that. Our defensive ends, Coach Ross, et cetera, down the line, all the position coaches and other, coaches that are here as well, and the support staff writing letters and calling these guys. And we want them to have a connection with the University of Houston. And I told all these kids, also that, hey, this is my last job, and I'm going to be here, and we're going to have the same culture. You hope you keep all your coaches forever. You'd love to have that, but I'm not foolish. I know that there's going to be coaches that will come and go, but our culture will remain. And, I'm going to make sure of that.
Coach Fritz, with every season that come and goes, there's always, lessons to learn from each and every game you're played upon, and things to improve on as the season goes on. So what would you say were the most important lessons you yourself as a coach learned, or any of your players?
Well, I think one thing we've learned is, the guys that played for us this season and are returning, we know what their strengths are, and we want to fine tune that. We want to get them better in areas that they're really good at. But we also know, maybe what their weaknesses are and what we need to work on in the off season, so we turn those into strengths. So, I Carlos and Cantrell are up there. Those guys played hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of snaps this year. So we got, times where, we're playing man from off and spinning down to play man with Cantrell and slanting and two-gapping and all the different things that, that Carlos has got to do. And, there's some of those things that, both those guys are just outstanding in, and there's some things, hey, we need to work on this a little bit. And, that's the job of the coaches throughout the off season, to show them what we can do to get better. That's the biggest part, because, we had a lot of new players this year, and what can they do well, and what do you got to stay away from? And it's one of the key things I try to lock in on. Sometimes you don't want to fit a square peg in a round hole. You got to find the right guy to be able to do the things that are going to help you win.
Willie, given what you return on defense, what are you looking for in a coordinator, and sort of how do you fit what you have versus who you're looking for?
Well, you want someone that's shown a history of success. That's a big deal, and there's statistics out the kazoo that you can look at, so that's the big deal. You want someone who's had success at, not necessarily the Power 4 level. Maybe it's the Group of 5 or 1AA or Division 2 or whatever the case may be, but someone who's had a history of success.
Willie, is there a way to stabilize roster turnover, or is that just a new reality?
Well, I think there's going to be a little bit of new reality, but also you hope the guys feel comfortable where they're at. I think some of these guys that have been in other programs, sometimes guys think the grass is greener someplace else, and they find out it's only green. We had a few kids that went other places this last year, and we're calling my coaches, how do I come back? No coming back. You play 4 games at that place. It's done, and so, it just, guys need to make wise decisions. I talked to one of our young men this morning. He wants to play football someplace, and he's probably going to have a difficult time playing at this level. And the bit of advice I gave him was find a level and a school that you get to play a lot at. Don't just, find a place where they're going to bring you in as a backup. And that's what happened to a few of the kids last year. They went places and they didn't play much, but the school needed depth. So that's what I think is important when a guy is looking. But we're hoping our guys, we're old school program. I'm bound and determined to help these guys get a degree in something that's useful for them, and I'm bound and determined to help these guys get their first job, because everybody thinks they're going to play in the NFL, and I've been doing this a long time, and I've had over 100 guys playing in the NFL. I've coached thousands of guys, so the percentage isn't that great. So the longer we're here, the more we can help our guys in that regard.
Willie, have you had end-of-year meetings with?
Doing a little bit right now with that. Right now, I'll be doing that, the rest of this week and next week as well. But
had any, in terms of players any indication on, do you feel like you'll be able to retain quite a bit?
I think so. You know, we've had a lot of discussions and things like that, and my position coaches have as well, and you know, and that's part of the culture. You want your position coach to really know the guys in his room. You know, last time I was just strictly a position coach was when I was at Sam Houston State in 91, 92, and 4 of those guys came to our last ball game. You know, they played for me there, and so I you know, had that kind of relationship with them, and I think my coaches have that kind of relationship with their guys as well, and you know, and that's one of the number one things when I hire a coach is, you know, that he's looking to be a role model and mentor to guys and a great coach and recruiter.
The offense was one of the biggest question marks of the season. Most of the time, you know, it felt like they were struggling to find their rhythm, and you know, the defense tries to do everything to keep them in it. So, what is it you want to see from the offense next season?
Scoring points, scoring a bunch of points. I'm just being sarcastic. Now, we got to get a lot better on the offensive side of the ball. There's no doubt about it, and we all know that. And part of that is you know, getting the you know, the right Jimmies and Joes out there. We got to get more talented on that side of the ball. You know, I think our high school kids are going to help us. I think there's going to be some kids in the portal that can help us as well. But you know, I'm bound and determined to have a 3-headed monster and not just 1 or 2 phases. You know, and there's times we didn't play very well in the kicking game either. There are times we did play well, but we want to you know, be a team that's I say it all the time, a 50-50 team, run pass, and you know, we had some difficulty doing some things this year, and that's part of being a coach is finding out what your guys are good at and doing that and accenting that, and then staying away from the things they don't do a very good job of. And sometimes we were good at that, and sometimes we weren't as good as we needed to be at that.
With competition, do you go out in the portal and get a quarterback, and will some of the young guys also sort of maybe go into the mix, going into the
Yeah, we're getting in the spring. Obviously, you got guys that are starters that have shown you know, what they can do, and they've earned that starting spot. But you also want great competition, and you know, and it's not football. We don't do a whole bunch of tackling in the spring, but you can determine whether or not this early enrollee is ready to play in the fall or not after 15 real practices. So we're going to have competition. We got to build up depth. That was one of our strengths on defense. We had 8 or 9 guys we'd play on the defensive line. You know, we rolled 3 or 4 inside linebackers, and none of them got hurt. You know, we played 3 or 4 corners. You know, we played really just a couple safeties, but fortunately those guys didn't get hurt. You know, so we got to get more depth in all 3 phases. We got to you know, bless you. We got to get better in all 3 phases.
Willie, how do you deal with the disappointment of not being able to keep a player or a coach because of financial constraints?
Well, I just, you know, part of it, you got to move on. You know, I tell the players all that's one of the things I'm proud of. You know, we I think learned how to fight through adversity. You know, and you know, we're all competitors. You know, but you got to have a good positive attitude, and you got to move on in the right direction, and not sit in there. We're going to find guys. Hey, I've done more with less my whole life. So it doesn't bother me one frickin' bit. That's where we're gonna do a great job here, and you know, we want to take a big step forward this year, and you know, I think all of us coaches and support staff and student athletes are chomping at the bit to get back. I know I am, you know, and shoot, I think I slept 3 hours last night. And yeah, just thinking about different things. And I'm excited about this 2025 season.
How would you grade your performance in 2024?
Not very good.
Okay, what
I'll
do
be
you
honest
work
with
on?
you. I wish I could have been more help with our offense. I'm gonna do a better job of sitting in there in meetings. You know, sometimes as a head coach, in this day and age, there's a lot of stuff that you're doing that has nothing to do with football. You know, when I was a head coach in my first job in 1993 at Blinn Junior College, I'd have never thought I'd be out raising all this money and doing that. We came in here, I had to do a great job with NIL. We were way behind, you know, and had to work on that. And so, you know, it's not just the recruiting, it's not just the coaching part, it's also the, you know, it's the culture part. I want our guys to feel good about being here. You know, I talked to a coach who's pretty highly ranked right now and is going to be in the college football playoffs. And he talked about, well, one thing I'm just doing is I'm being really nice to our guys, you know, especially with Monday coming up. And I just, you know, I'm not going to be like that. If there's something I need to tell them and they've done something wrong or they're not acting appropriately, I'm going to say something. And most of the time, the kids really respect that. Sometimes they don't. You know, they'd rather be patted on the back and they've told they've done everything right all their lives. But I mean, most of our guys, they when I point that out to them, they understand, yeah, you're right, Coach, I screwed up. You know, but that's the kind of program we're going to have.
When you look at some of your colleagues around the country in basketball and football that are saying, you know, this isn't what I signed up for, this game has changed, it's a lot more responsible, and then they walk away. What do you think about that in terms of what the job?
Well, that's their choice.
Well, in
Yeah.
terms of your job description now, including.
It's different. You know, I think that's why I've stayed relevant as a head coach since 1993 is I've changed at all these different levels that I've been to, and then, you know, and all the different rules and regulations that have occurred. And, you know, if you don't think you can handle it and adapt to it, you need to quit. You need to retire, whatever it might be, and because it is different. Plain and simple.
Coach, one last question about recruiting. You got 19 kids today, and you know, did you feel like you won the day? Did you feel U of H got better today?
Oh, I think we got a lot better. You know, you know, I don't like saying, oh, you beat this school, that school. We beat a bunch of schools, you know, that I don't know if U of H has beaten very many times. Maybe a handful of times they have. We did it with about 15, 16 of these guys. You know, that they had what people would refer to as big time offers. Well, they got a bigger time offer from University of Houston. You know, so we're really excited about that.